Oh, I got them.
Okay.
So what we've got, are we good to go ahead and start?
Yes,
Okay.
it just came through.
Great. So what we've got today is actually one proposal, and then rather than two, we think we're super close. But we'd like to kind of talk about what we feel is, at least on 9, I think we're literally down to a single word. But rather than giving you a proposal, we'd like to just kind of talk about the context of that word and kind of what our interest is in trying to address it. And then maybe we can like able to figure out a way or a version that you find acceptable, because I think we're literally a single word. So,
Okay.
you know, rather than just asserting the word that we put last time, and then you come back and be like, well, no, like, let's just look at it in context. I try to clean up the rest of 9. And then we have 4. And then 7, what we attempted to do, and you'll see this in a minute, is you guys had said, try to come up with some definition that you guys find acceptable or you're willing to talk about.
Mhm.
And so that's what we tried to do. Rather than make it a formal proposal, though, we want to show you kind of what we've come up with. And let's talk about it and see if it's in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know. We're happy to start wherever you'd like. Do you care? Where do you want to?
So you brought 4, 7, and 9, but not 10.
Right, 4 is an actual proposal, 7 and 9, we think, at least on 9, we're super close on. And we think that hopefully we can maybe work that one out today. And then on 7, we know that we've been pretty far apart, but you guys, like I said, had asked about, look, what about this part? Can you guys try to put something in your own words, basically? And we said, okay, well, so that's what we tried to do.
Do you want to start with 4? Or
Can we talk about 10 for a second?
Sure,
Are you guys bringing 10?
probably not.
not today, not next week?
I think we've said just about everything we want to talk about with regard to 10.
I do believe 10's on your side of the
Yeah.
table.
I appreciate, see that, yeah, I know you guys do. I mean, I think we've said everything we want to say about 10. I appreciate that you guys want to keep bringing it back. I think that, I mean, if only on the record, we reject your Article 10 proposal, I'll say we reject your Article 10 proposal.
But you're not proposing another?
No.
No, so,
Not now, no, not now, and then I'm not promising that we're gonna do it in the future. Like I said, I mean, I don't know how many times in a row we've attempted to say this is our last best final offer. I realize that you guys are continuing to bring additional offers, but
so what you're saying basically is that you have implemented a unilateral raise, bypassing the bargaining process, and you're standing with that unilateral proposal because you're refusing to bargain
no,
over raises.
that's what you're saying. I'm not saying that. That's what you're
You've
saying.
said that you're not bringing any counter at all.
No, I said we are done bringing counters and we've given you our last best final proposal.
How is that different from what I just said?
Because you asserted that we unilaterally did something in
You
violation.
unilaterally decided on implementing the raise.
Yes, which we're allowed to do in the contract.
Yes, but you also stated in that email that as you should, you will keep bargaining on Article 10. And now you're saying that you're not going to bring any other proposals, which is not bargaining.
Those are not the same thing. Those are not the same thing. We
How is that
continue
not
to
the
meet
same?
and discuss with you. If you guys want to bring more proposals, we're open to listening to
So
them.
we're just bargaining with ourselves, basically.
Again, you can interpret it however you want. The bottom line is you can go back and count how many proposals we brought on 10. You can
Mhm.
go back and count how many sessions we've had on 10. You can go back and count the minutes we've talked about 10. But to say that just because we've reached a final position and we won't move any farther, that we're in some way, shape, or form not bargaining
You
is your
you
interpretation.
unilaterally implemented your own proposal.
How is that different than what we're permitted to do in the contract? We're
Because
permitted
you're
to
not-
do it in the contract.
You're permitted in the contract to decide on raises,
Yes,
right, and implement them.
right.
But you don't have the right to simply do that while we're bargaining for raises and just like stop bargaining.
Do you want to point out in the contract where there's some sort of time limited provision about that?
We hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
So we are gonna need to talk to our legal counsel and
Please
just make
do.
sure that everything is
I mean,
square.
absolutely.
Because what it seems to us is that, yes, you did something according to the contract, we recognize that, right? 10.6 or whatever it is exists and you did it and that's fine.
Mhm.
But what we don't think is okay is that you implemented it and now you are not going to bargain with us any further.
Again, I invite you, please, by all means, just like when Austin said it a couple weeks ago, that you guys wanted to talk to your legal team, absolutely. I invite you to do that. Please, by all means, do. Seek counsel through your leadership organization, legal, obviously, all those things are perfectly fine.
Can you tell us any more as to how and why you implemented the raises that you did?
We implemented the raises in accordance with the contract and our interpretation of the contract. I mean, it's that simple.
Okay, and you won't give us any more information on how or why this arose after we asked for it in September for a pullout, for an MOU, for all of this different stuff, and we were told that no raise would go into effect before a fully ratified contract.
So the difference is that, I mean, we could get into a formal response to the question, but in general, MOUing the article is different than us exercising one provision of the article. I think that's the big difference.
But when you told us the Board of Trustees would not implement raises before we had a fully ratified contract,
Mhm. But
that
there's,
was a blanket statement that you gave us.
no, the big difference is we would not pull out Article 10 as an MOU and pay it early. That's different than us exercising our right to pay under that single provision.
You told us it needed to be ratified, and we offered to pull it out as a single ratification and to sign it on both sides as well.
Okay,
Okay. So nothing changed, you just, like, whoever it was, because we don't know who it was, decided to do this, and it was simply done.
again, I think your point is good. We want to talk to you, you say you want to talk to your attorneys, by all means, please do it. Evaluate what we did and avail yourself and govern yourself accordingly.
And on the record, UF will not be bringing any.
At this time, we don't have a proposal on Article 10.
At this, but you also stated earlier that you will not have one for the future.
I do not have one today. I can't tell you if and when we're going to bring another one. We're going to continue to engage in the collective bargaining process during this full book negotiation.
Okay.
And can you tell us, in your perspective, what it means for UF to engage process?
I don't think we're going to go through that. I mean, to your point, though, I will say this. To your point, which I think is, I understand your question. We would love to hear from you on our response to Article 2X from last February, which we have never heard from you all on regarding.
I'm sorry, for which proposal?
We proposed back in February of last year, Article 2X, which had to do with seeking a third-party professional development opportunity for us to get together and go through how we bargain, why we bargain, how the process unfolds, and all those types of things.
Okay.
I think, my opinion, I think we sometimes get mired in what our mutual responsibilities are at the table. And I feel like sometimes it's not even about the substance we're talking about, but what our mutual obligations are to one another. And I just don't know if that's productive. And again, I'm not blaming you all. I'm saying together, we have a difference of opinion about what our obligations are to each other at the table. And that's a barrier that I think it would be helpful if we could overcome. And that's why I'm saying, don't take my word for it. Don't take the university's word for it. We're open to exploring an opportunity to have a third party, a mutual objective third party. And we would sit with you in the same to say, look, we have a difference of opinion of how. Would you be open to having another person explain to us how it should work and how to go and how you guys should be bargaining?
Okay, I think according to our records, we just rejected that. We
Oh,
weren't
okay.
interested in talking
Fair-
about it
fair
any
enough.
further in the same way you all weren't interested in grad housing.
Okay,
We
Fair
will,
enough.
we
No,
can
it's all right.
continue that conversation on our
so
side, but,
that's fine.
okay. Let's talk about that on our own for Article
Mhm.
10, and let's move on to what you guys brought today. You said you don't have a preference on,
You can talk about
Order.
whatever one you want to do first.
why don't we do 4?
All right.
Opening it up.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you that I know that we now have multiple versions of both the crossed out and the clean version.
Mhm,
So I please ask that you, after we're done,
mhm.
please hold it up. Whatever version you have that you think is the most accurate one, because if I inadvertently failed to show that I crossed something out, it wasn't by design, but there are all of these, they're called content control dialog boxes throughout this that I don't even know how to deal with them.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And so it is like trying to show the changes is really, really difficult. So what I tried to do was clean up as many of those as I could. but I'm not 100% sure that if there's a deletion, it's properly reflected as a change with my name tagged on it.
Okay,
So again, fair warning, please hold this up against whatever you believe is the most appropriate last version
Mhm.
and do a very careful line by line read, because, you know, if something is missing, it wasn't necessarily because I intentionally said, oh, you took that word out and you didn't reflect it. So just.
okay. And I
please
just
do that.
want to confirm this is against the clean version that we brought the last time.
No, because
No.
I thought I found some differences between your clean version and our dirty version. So what I tried to do was I went back, cleaned up our version that had all the changes to try to make it look like your clean version
The clean
and then
version.
make changes.
The clean version I brought was in line with our last proposal.
Gotcha. Okay,
That was so,
I understand.
so you could very visibly see
Understood.
what we were proposing.
So that was what I
It
tried
was
to
not
do.
against your last proposal, it was
Gotcha.
against our last proposal.
That makes sense now. Okay, so what I tried to do was exactly the same thing.
Okay,
I went back to our version and tried to make so
okay,
I followed the same process that you just described.
Okay.
So that's even more reason that you should go back and do a line by line read. I did attempt to look at yours as I was doing it, however, so that I could call out the ones where there are differences.
okay.
I think the biggest thing was trying to turn to default format where we have agreement, because there's an incredible amount of place where we do have agreement that aligned with your clean version.
Okay,
So hopefully we can just kind of like mark that off and not have to go through it each time. So one of the things, starting in line 5, we had a question. There was an interest in changing this from parties to our specific names in this article. And I wasn't sure why. We just wanted to know kind of why that was.
just to make it in line with the rest of the contract. Basically, at the beginning of everything, it says UFFGAU and the University of Florida.
Okay,
I don't think there's anything,
okay. I'm not sure that's a substantive difference. I mean, that's
Not
something
at
we
all.
can probably work out. Okay, and then in line 8, it was and you guys changed it to serves as. So like I said, if you guys really want this change, we can probably go along with it, but we're not sure if there was an intentional distinction.
I don't think so.
Okay. I think we're good all the way through down to lines 37 through 42. If you see my comments, the language in lines 34 through 36 should be sufficient for this purpose. And up in 34 to 36, it says the university encourages departments to provide such multi-year support when feasible in accordance with this agreement. The letters of offer shall not be interpreted as nor written in a way that could reasonably be interpreted as guaranteeing specific appointments or assignment details beyond the initial period of appointment. So, you know, we think that part is sufficient without this other provision. And again, I know that some of the numbers aren't indented properly. I tried to fix as many of those as I could. So that's the 37 through 42. In terms of you all had a change in lines 44 through 45, which is we interpreted as just a clarification. We're okay with that. I turned that one black.
About appointments and reappointments?
Yeah, you added and reappointments and we think that's okay. All right, so number 6, and we had questions about this last time. And like I said, we're willing to talk about this, but we're not sure that the language as you all have written captures what it is that you're interested in accomplishing. So we kind of wanted to go back and really talk about that. So you had suggested start and end dates of appointment details if different from appointment start and end dates. So like a reference to the academic calendar, is that really, do you want like the academic calendar written into the appointment letter?
So what this is, and I believe I said last time we brought it as well, what this is intended to do is for a 9-month or a 12-month,
Right,
for example, TA, whose details are a 1-semester detail.
right,
They need to still have their appointment start and end dates, which will be August something to May something.
Mhm.
And their course or details dates, which is August something to December something. And then
Got that part.
subsequently January something to May something.
Got that part. I think the thing
Okay.
that we weren't sure about is, so is there a belief or a thought that if you are a TA, that the appointment period is aligned with not the semester, not the employment semester, but with the academic? I guess that's the question we have.
No, because it would still be the appointment
Right.
dates.
Okay, so
This is-
I may not be asking the question.
Can I give you an
Please,
example
yeah,
of
that would be-
mine,
that would be
which
very helpful.
hopefully will be helpful?
Please, yes.
In my letter of appointment
Mhm.
that I get every time, which is not called a letter of reappointment, it's called a letter of appointment,
Right.
which is another point of whatever
Right.
confusion. In my letter of appointment, it says in the first paragraph, for the fall semester, I will be TAing this class with this professor for these dates.
Right,
It's like August 15th, which is before the start of the academic calendar, through whatever day in
Mhm.
December is the last day that
right, the act,
is
right,
for the
employment, whatever,
period.
right,
That is the only dates that are listed in my letter.
okay,
And then all the way at the end, after I sign, there's a separate page that has like my name, my student ID,
the details
basically the
box.
details box.
Yeah,
And within that, it says that I am a like GTA 9 months.
right,
And that is the only place anywhere in my letter that I sign that says that I am a 9-month employee.
now I understand,
Yeah.
okay,
And
And-
so we
Okay,
wanna
now I
make
get it.
sure
got it,
that people know that their appointment is for 9 months, and when we sign that piece of paper, that it is for 9 months, because if we're having this conversation, that we can be non-renewed at any natural break in our contract.
right,
It needs to be explicit that that is
Gotcha.
a 9-month period.
I understand now.
I'll
Okay, go
also
ahead.
say for context for like people in Zoom, and just as a reminder to the international students, is that, international students have to renew their I-20 throughout or at some point while they're a PhD candidate, because I-20s are only for 4 years, right?
Right.
And PhDs, usually are more than 4 years. And to renew that, you do need to provide evidence that you're going to have enough funds. But if you only have a document that it says that your appointment is from August to December, even if you're a GA9, right, and you're gonna have funds in the spring semester, the International Center has had issues with that type of documentation, right?
Right.
So we want to make sure that international students that are renewing their I-20s can go easily to the International Center, and the International Center can have documentation that is going to let them
Right.
renew their I-20s for more than 4 months.
Gotcha,
Right.
that makes sense. So this is where my confusion is now. That was very
Okay.
helpful, Hannah, thank you. So when we look at number 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how is 4 substantively different than number 6? Because that's where I'm confused.
So 4 says length of the full appointment period.
Right.
1 semester, 9 months, 12 months.
Right,
Right, so the difference is that we want the start and end dates. Right, so 4 and 5 are
Mhm.
for the entire appointment period.
Okay,
And in recognizing that a TA's letter of appointment is going to have course dates in it,
Mhm.
it will be helpful for everyone to very clearly state that these are appointment start and, or like detail start and end dates.
so,
You may wanna like rename them something else, right?
We can give them a different name, but the intention is to say, if you imagine a letter, right?
yeah,
LOA,
right,
and you've got a start and an end,
Mhm.
which is August and May.
right,
And then you have a course,
right,
right? And the course will have a start and an end.
right, inside of the individual semester,
There you go.
Right.
That's all we're trying to say, and that's the distinction we're trying to make.
gotcha. So if we
Okay.
augmented number 4 to say length of full appointment period with start and end dates, would that accomplish what you're interested in?
If those letters are going to have 2 sets of dates.
We need 2 sets of dates. Or in the case, and that's why I wrote in the case that the details are different than the entire appointment period.
Okay.
Because in a case that you're, for example, an RA, and you're being appointed for 12 months and you're just doing the same job for 12 months.
Right,
Having just 4 and 5 is fine, because it'll just say you're appointed for 12 months, here's the start and end date of your contract.
gotcha,
Super clear.
okay,
It's only important in cases where the details are different than the entire appointment.
so let me give you, sorry,
I'm a little confused as well. Like, I get it. Is it more of like the course date starts this time? Because Or are you saying, Hannah, you guys are working on something else from 8:15 until that class day where you're starting to teach? Because the appointment length, the appointment calendar is the actual work, what the range of time frame of work. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
So
let-
sorry, go ahead.
No.
I can help clarify by
Yeah,
explaining
go ahead.
why we do it in my department.
Okay.
They decide what classes you're teaching because based on enrollment and different things. So they make us sign 2 separate appointment letters.
Yes.
Depending on the semester for TAs, because we don't know what we're teaching.
Right,
Yes,
Right.
same for me.
Does that kind of help?
so.
And so the letter itself, so for the two of us who are TAs, right? We sign a letter of appointment
Mhm.
each semester.
Right,
Which only includes the details and only lists the dates for the one semesterly details.
Right.
Because we don't know what we're gonna teach the next semester.
right,
And nowhere in that letter does it say, besides all the way at the bottom,
Right.
nested in somewhere just in our job code, does it say that the appointment is actually for 9 months?
got it.
And that says the actual break in our contract is May and is not December, whatever date
Gotcha.
the details end.
So
Does
I-
that help
I-
Judy?
I think so, because I think now we get it. So if we were to say instead, if we were to give you 3 pieces of information in your initial letter, if we were to say, this is a 9-month appointment.
Mm-hmm,
In the fall semester, which runs August 15th to December 9th or whatever it is, you will be teaching intro to psychology.
mm-hmm,
You will also be teaching a course from January 10th to May 5th or whatever it is, that we will let you know when we have time. But contemplate those dates without assigning the course in that first letter. Would that check the boxes?
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay, does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yeah,
Judy?
that's better. Yeah, way to be eloquent. Yes.
Okay,
So obviously that's not reflected in what I proposed, but I think I have an understanding now.
that is
So let me
the
go
purpose.
back and augment what we have and I'll send you another copy, but I think I understand now. So let me take another crack at that.
There also might be temporary TAs that are not on a 9-month, so I don't think that would be impacted by this wording.
And again,
What do you mean?
if you're only getting appointed for one semester,
Right,
That wording would still cover those situations.
that's fine, that's clear.
well, yeah,
We're
because they
just
shouldn't
talking
say,
about when details are different than the full appointment length.
Right.
So if it's a one semester TA appointment
then it
and
would
a
have.
one
to be more.
semester course,
That would be fine.
that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, I got it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, because
Okay.
I am a TA and my courses changed from fall to spring.
Right,
Okay.
So that detail would be appreciated.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be a common thing across all departments. You're gonna find people signing letters that look like one semester.
Yeah.
But we're 9 months or 12
Right.
months or whatever it is.
no, I think it makes sense. I mean,
Okay.
I get it. Because, if there may be departments that already know and are willing to commit all the way in August what you're gonna be teaching in spring, but a lot of them don't.
Mhm.
And they don't know until later. So I mean, I think I get it now.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we just want the dates.
Yeah.
That's,
Without necessarily the course detail saying,
It
look.
doesn't matter what the
Yeah.
course details are. It just needs to say that the appointment is actually 9 months or
Right.
actually
And
12
and not
months.
just in the little box at the bottom.
mhm, yeah,
Exactly.
Okay. All right, so if we go down to line 77, we think that line is contained to the extent it needs to be contained inside subsection D, where it actually has the dates. It appears to us that those things conflict with one another. And, we're not sure, we think that would be the governing provision rather than D 83, 84, lines 83, 84, and 85.
Okay, because this is not the version I worked on last time, I am pretty sure that that sentence came from somewhere else.
I think you're right.
And I moved it there because that was the clearest place that it will go. And so let us look back at it and see if we should move it somewhere or. Let us look back at that.
That's
Yeah,
Yeah, because
that's
either,
fine. I
either it's,
understand what you're saying.
it's either as soon as practicable, or it's the dates that we have assigned. It really can't necessarily be both. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So, all right, in line 88, we're willing to accept that was a change. I turned it black. We're willing to take that language that you had suggested. All right, so. I guess I wrote my question out, just so we can be clear, in line 101, 102.
Okay, this is
Um,
the newly written 4.5.
Yes, so my question is, other than appointment and reappointment letters, what do you envision this requiring on our behalf? I guess that's the question, because we don't want to be in a situation where we have to sort of create documents or create public records. So I guess if we just wanted to say, okay, so give us an example of what you envision this would cover. Because written information is a little vague.
Regarding appointment details. So I don't think that we're necessarily talking about anything other than the letters of appointment, letters of reappointment, and details of the appointment, which is listed wherever it is that supervisors need to be giving GAs appointment details. And this is a rewrite of that super weird clause that was originally in the article that says like UFF, GAU can request details
Right.
about teaching assistant, whatever it says. You know
Gotcha.
what line I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's down, I think we agreed to take it
Here, I
out, so
can-
it's in the,
I can read it to you verbatim.
all right, go ahead.
So the old 4.3 says upon written request, UFF GAU shall be provided written information regarding established guidelines for teaching assistant appointments. Which is, dare I say, equally if not more vague.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
When appointed, employees shall be criteria concerning reappointment. And so the intention of the newly revised, what is now 4.5, is that the example that we're imagining is if a GA comes to us over something and wants to file a grievance or has a question or whatever it is,
Right,
that we can then ask on their behalf for their details,
right. Yeah, I think,
which they should have.
sure, but if they don't,
But if they don't, we want to be able to ask for them.
yeah, I think, like I said, I think our concern, and like I said, I'm not disagreeing that the previous language was also vague. And it actually even uses in 4.3 the phrase written information. I think we just want to be explicit about what specific, so that we know that we have fulfilled our responsibility under the provision. Because immediately we're like, okay, so you need the letters of appointment, if there's a letter of reappointment, letter of offer, because with the new nomenclature that could be in there. I guess we're just, what other things could be there, and if it's not clear, can we maybe refine explicitly what that would be?
Would you want us to like enumerate the things that we are imagining?
I think that would be helpful.
Okay, we will
Um,
try to do that and then we can. Feel free.
I think adding the word existing kind of clears this whole thing up. Just say any existing written information regarding appointment details. That way you don't have to create anything new. We don't have to make this long list of things that we expect to ask.
All right, we can talk about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's a good suggestion. We'll go ahead and talk about that. We may be able to get that in there.
Just the word existing.
All right.
that's fine.
So 4.6 is there. I mean, that's already in there. We split it apart. We split 4.3 apart. That's current contract language in 4.3. So it looks red, but it's just moved.
Oh, when appointed employees shall be provided criteria concerning
Yeah,
reappointment?
that's CCL. It just looks, I'm saying is that's language that's already existing. It just looks red because I moved it. That's all.
Okay,
So that's
does
why-
it need
that's
to
why
be
it's
on
red.
its own?
I think in the context of us not taking 4.5, yes, but we can, like I said, when we can put those back together when we
Okay, one of the goals of mine in cleaning up this
Frankenstein. Yeah.
article is to make hanging sentences like that not exist.
I got you. I got
So
you.
wherever we can fit that in, that would be
Okay.
great.
So 4.7 was in changes to appointment. We need that. We really want that to stand on its own. Because it's not in the context of a change to an appointment detail. It really is, and it currently exists as 4.4 on its own. So we think it's important that it not be confused as being subordinate to even though that the titles don't have any power as per the contract, we really want it to remain its own provision.
For anyone who's not looking at this, I don't know if you all can read this. Great. We're talking about this sentence at the top here. No appointment shall create any right, interest, or expectancy a continued appointment, which is a sentence that we,
Of continued employment or appointment? So employment is up there.
employment. This is the fact that basically the university, even if you are initially like, if at some point your department says you're gonna have 5 years of funding, at any natural break in your contract, there is no expectancy that you will get another appointment.
So they could bring
Just to
you
clarify.
for 5 years, you know, my own letter of offer does say the words guarantee funding for 5 years. And I'm on a 9-month contract. After any 9-month break, they can say,
For,
you no longer have a job here. And I cannot go to them and tell them, hey, my letter of offer says that you actually guaranteed 5 years for me and I'm on my 4th year. Because UF does not recognize the letter of offer as like a valid contract thing, right, Patrick?
Well, and that's why we've
Yeah.
talked
Yeah.
about the need to
Mhm.
put in the contract
Right.
that we need to dial that back and not
Mhm.
have letters be misconstrued or utilize that type of language.
Exactly,
So that it doesn't create this conflict.
exactly. Well, UF GAU did try to create the right of reappointment, but that is something that UF is not interested in doing.
That's true.
That is true.
okay, thank you.
All right, so again, on 4.8, which is line 113, you all had suggested adding changes to appointment details and reappointments. Even though, again, like I said, the headings themselves don't have any weight, we think that adding those phrases would create a problem with the clarity because it's changes to appointments themselves, not just changing the appointment details or reappointments, because technically we don't have to make a change to a reappointment if, for the discussion we were just having, the reappointment is not granted. So that wouldn't be changing a reappointment because if the reappointment isn't granted, we're not changing a reappointment.
I think this is coming up against one of the things that we're trying to do
Mhm.
in this whole conversation. What we're trying to do is we're trying to pick out the letter of offer, which tells us our first appointment.
Mhm.
And then after that, the language we are now trying to assert is that each subsequent appointment is a reappointment.
Gotcha.
And that is why we are using the word reappointment,
Okay.
because, and according to the language that's now in here, the appointment is really just that first one.
Gotcha.
And you would get a letter of reappointment for each subsequent period.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. We can talk about that too and make a note here.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
distinguishing the first period versus the subsequent periods,
Mhm.
which
Just to be clear.
I got it. No, we can go back and talk about that too.
Okay.
All right, so now we're on to, I had a question on, line 114. I inserted the word the or an, because I think it was just missing a word.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's a real simple thing. All right, down to continued failure to perform duties as specified. Such written notification may take the form of letter counseling, improvement plan, or other such blah, blah, blah. You know, this was something that you guys had in a separate spot. We think it should be under the heading here that we have is 4.8. There was also down in 138 that there was an additional phrase that, again, we think that provision is inherent. Again, this is where it's not marked out because it was in one of those content control boxes.
Okay, yeah, can you tell me what you're talking about? So
In
you're,
like 138,
you're first talking about 129.
yes,
Which says continued failure to perform duties specified in letter of appointment. And in this case, could get you curtailed, diminished, or terminated.
correct.
Where was it before? I assumed it was just in that list
It
before.
was in 4.7. It was the first. The continued failure to perform duties as specified in letter of appointment after written notification from the department is currently 4.7A1.
Okay,
So the new 4.8 was the old 4.7. So we have expanded I mean, we've mutually agreed to expand a whole bunch of stuff in the first part of the old 4.7
Mhm.
with everything from lines 113 down to 125. That's all new stuff that we've added to the old 4.7.
Okay,
Really 4.7A is all that, those 12 lines or so. So if you look in the old version of the contract, if you look at 113 starting at 4.7, going all the way down to the new number one is the old number one under 4.7A. Because all that stuff in between is stuff that we've agreed to add. And you'll see where it starts, continued failure to perform duties as specified.
Mhm.
So that's where,
okay, I just don't understand how that's different from the last one, but that's fine, I'll go back and look.
yeah, I can go ahead and check. And then the such, where it starts with such, that's all stuff that was also added. That's all new language, but it's black because we've agreed to it. So, all right. So, down to line 151, again, we were looking for some clarification. Nailing down exact expectations, UFFG will receive notification if any GA left the bargaining unit and for what reason. I think, sort of timing, documentation, like I think those are all things that we'd be interested in maybe making more specific. Do you all want to be, I mean, is the expectation that we notify you, everything from a daily basis to a semesterly basis?
That's fine, we
Is-
can talk about a time frame.
Well, and it may be an opportunity for us to align this expectation with the reporting requests.
Yeah, which I think we've been having issues with potentially, but
Yeah.
that's an outside.
Well, I resent it again today, but
Oh,
again,
you
that's an
did?
outside topic. but,
Okay,
because I know that certainly your need for data sharing has changed in the last 12 months. There are certain topics there are certain pieces of data that are easier for us to get than other pieces of data. There are also two different reports that you guys want. There's one regarding, there's a raise file expectation that's different from a roster file expectation.
Mhm.
But you also need the roster more frequently than the once a year that's guaranteed in the contract because of some of the work that you guys have to do, and we've been trying to
Okay.
provide it. So I just think it all kind of lines up with that. Because like I said, what we'd like to do is,
Mhm.
let's do one thing that gets you guys what you need. And then hopefully I can have IT help me operationalize that, and then we can just spit it out in accordance with the calendar that we agree to, as opposed to having 3 different reports,
Mhm.
including now like they would typically call like a change ad report, like, here's the total list of the employees. Next week, and then you guys have to go through and be like, okay, well, this is a new person.
Yeah,
this person left.
this is instead of what you're saying, right, which is an entire list, this is just asking for the specific changes.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is,
You wanna condense everything.
let's just do
I
it in
understand.
one, because
Do you know exactly where that sits in other places? Is that in
I think it's in miscellaneous,
19
I think. Hang on, I was just looking at it. 19.7.
report? Okay, I see it. Okay, we will have a conversation about that on our end,
Yeah.
because things are changing rapidly,
Mhm.
and we can figure that out.
And just make it, if you give us the full list of everything that you guys want on there, and then we can run through, if there's anything, for example, that we don't feel comfortable sharing because for whatever reason it isn't a public record, the overwhelming majority of it is. And then, like I said, the easier I can make pulling that report, the more easily and frequently I can give it to you without having to do what we have to do now, which is pull 5 or 6 different reports, condense them, do a lot of VLOOKUPs, and then
Okay,
send it over to you guys.
we can at the very least make sure that whatever we have here directly talks to 19.7,
Yeah.
and we can figure out how to make that
Or even
clear.
move it from here to there,
Mhm.
like so that it's just in one spot, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like, hey, we have this, and this. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
let us talk about that, and we will
Great.
work on that.
And then down to, all right, so 4.9. So we had a lot of conversation about 4.9. Our intention with the changes in line 161, 162, and 164 is not any substantively, not to change it, but just to provide some clarity. Because we've now been sharing this, and we've been sharing this language with some people, and they were like, they didn't understand it. So-
Okay, this is just the language that we implemented last summer.
Correct, and so our interest is just clarifying it, like I said, if you read it. There should not be any change to what it does, we're just trying to make it read more clearly,
Okay, well, we can look back at it.
so,
and
yeah, please
figure it out.
do.
Okay.
All right, so that's 4. Now, the good news about 4 is I think we're a heck of a lot closer than we were before, I mean, there's a lot of new language in here, so. All right.
So.
Why don't we do 7, yeah, with the new language
Okay.
that you're bringing?
So, yeah, so 7, you'll see it's marked that way. 7 is a request for really a discussion about the component. You guys had asked, look, will you guys try to put some language together that you might be willing to find acceptable? So we're not proposing the entirety of the article, but rather, all right, here is our attempt to put some words down in accordance with your request, and I highlighted them here.
Oh, it's the highlight?
It's the highlights.
Okay.
But I put it in context just so, I wasn't gonna bring just that one sentence, that way it's easier to sort of read.
Is this a formal proposal that you're giving us though?
No, see, I put it right at the top for discussion, not a proposal.
Okay.
That way there's no confusion. So line 22, for research assistance, excess workload is defined as being explicitly assigned employment responsibilities in excess of average contracted hours based on the FTE of their employment. So I acknowledge that we still don't agree on average or not average. But again, this was an attempt to put language together in accordance with what you had said is, look, is there any version of this that you could ever get past, basically? Is there any version of this that you could ever find acceptable? So the team got together and attempted to do that.
We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Putting, and making an effort to actually provide a definition of overwork. I
Mhm.
want to, ask you, what would you define as explicitly assigned employment responsibilities? Like, maybe like talking more about like the boundaries around this word.
I think if the supervisor says
Mhm.
you have to come in and you must do this.
Yeah,
I mean,
That's explicit, yes.
explicitly assigning them, look, in accordance with, this is part of your GA shift. You have to come in and you have to do this.
okay. But what if they, sort of not do it as explicitly, but maybe send you emails of like, you're not making good progress. I would expect you to be doing this, this, and this. And if doing this, this, and this is actually, takes more than, 0.5 FTE, like 20 hours a week, would you count that as explicit assigned employment responsibilities?
Well, I think we're back to, is it part of your research project or not? I mean, I think that's the thing that we keep sort of circling back to on the RAs.
Can I, instead of us giving a hypothetical and seeing how you feel about it, can you give us a hypothetical that would fit this
I
definition?
thought I just kind of did. I mean.
Yeah, it's like,
It's simply, they say you have to be here Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. For example, because that would be 40 hours, which would be over an
Yeah.
FTE of.
Yeah, I mean, and we had a couple cases, not last year, but the year before, where, there was 2 letters of appointment that made it through where someone said you have to work at least 20 hours a week, and we immediately
mhm.
got those rescinded, and we met with that chair and made sure those GAs understood that that wasn't appropriate, and,
In this situation, the GA would need to ask if it's academic or if they don't specify. Or be covered under this provision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think that the reality of it is that that's not, like, these things for many people are like pretty much the same thing.
It goes back to the salary versus hourly situation that I think we've talked about in great detail, right?
Right.
Which is,
Mhm.
we are hourly and yet we are asked to work a salaried type of job, right? Where we have discrete tasks that aren't, you cannot just only complete them within the hours, for example.
So I think, I'll bring up an example that we talked about previously that was actually one of the folks that you kind of had come talk about this. And I think that sort of the other way of thinking about it, which we thought was insightful, although I'm not sure, I think we interpreted his statement differently. was, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he was a researcher in one of the medicine departments, the college of
Mhm,
medicine
yeah.
departments.
I remember.
And, I think Tom asked, hey, let's say you didn't have a GA shift and you were just a student. How many fewer hours would you work? And he said, none, I would work the same amount. I'd still be in the lab the same amount of hours. So I think that's the other way of looking at this is, you know, if having a GA shift doesn't actually change the number of hours you're in the lab, I think that's a different way of sort of interpreting how these things overlap. You know, and I thought you did a good job of laying out, look, I realize that it's not just about, in his case anyway, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but you can go back and watch the video. My interpretation of what he was presenting is, look, it's not just about the bare minimum of what I have to do to complete my work and my studies. It's also about making sure that I am doing enough things to make me marketable and employable if I want to pursue, you know, a higher ed research sort of a position.
Mhm.
So I am married to a person in the College of Medicine
Oh,
doing the
gotcha.
same job,
Okay.
right? So I intimately understand like the plight,
Sure, yeah.
the lived experience of it. And I think it's reductive to say it's just that it's just, I want to be marketable, that it's just this. Because the reality of it is there are job tasks that
Mhm.
require you to be there. If you're keeping mice, you have to be there overnight.
Right,
If you're keeping cells, you have to be there all the time. Like,
sure,
there are, yes, if you were just a student, you would have to be there the same amount of hours, but the fact of the matter is they're not just students.
no, I get that.
They
I
are GAs,
understand.
and if they're there 60 hours a week, their GA ship is paying for them to be there 60 hours a week, right? Like, that's kind of the reality of our lived experience.
Okay, I mean, I get
And
that.
so, because we are whole creatures, we are whole beings,
Mm,
right? That feels like overwork because there is no divide between keeping my mice for being a student and keeping my mice for being
Right.
an employee. Or cells, or whatever it
Sure.
is, or if
And
you're
that's,
in a
I think that's
chemistry
what we're
lab.
trying to, and I totally get that. That's what I think we're trying to do with this highlighted language, like, is can we get somewhere where we can start to say, you know, above and beyond what you're doing as a student, this is the paid employment
Mm.
piece.
Okay,
I'll
And I know
also-
I know we're still working on it, but that's the direction we're trying to move. I think another thing that helped me was all these lines stricken, and then you get down to 42 or 43, sorry, I'll be back on. And if you kind of picture those two contiguous to each other, that hopefully that helps too, because it's like, hey, excess workload is defined as blah, blah, blah. And then if there are questions upon request, you can actually ask, well, what is it? What explicitly is it that I'm supposed to be
I'll
doing?
also say, so Patrick, I think you did like a pretty good job summarizing the vulnerable position that a lot of GAs are in, right? That they have to overwork themselves, they have to give so much for the future prospect of maybe getting a job, right? They are in a vulnerable position, they have to overwork themselves. Our hope with this clause is that we can have something that if GAs that see themselves in this position want to not do that,
Mhm.
right? They want to say, I am not going to put 60 hours of work here
right,
because maybe I want to do something else after this. I don't care about my marketability as much, or, you know, I just don't abide by this.
Right.
But my PI is still expecting these things of me.
right,
They're still expecting me to overwork, and they're still treating me in a way that forces me, right? Coerces me into overworking. That they can have a definition in the contract that is going to protect their right to grieve and to find a good solution to that grievance, right? That it's not just going to end up being you're overworking yourself because it's good for you eventually. Like, that's what we want to protect our GAs from.
yeah, I hear you. I mean, I understand that. I think, again, what makes it really difficult to some extent is we're talking about the space that exists between meeting, which we're not gonna, we have no interest in putting in the contract is, what is the space of effort, time, amount of research conducted, intensity or rigorousness of a particular study or a particular project, what is the space that exists between the bare minimum academic requirements to be successfully complete the program? And if it's higher, where are the expectations of my PI for the purposes of being, kind of like you were saying, marketable, able to attain a certain level of professional opportunity following the fact, blah, 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 blah. What is that space? And does that space align with what they're asking me to do as part of my GA-ship, or does it not? And how do we sort of untangle those things? Because I don't think, and again, this is probably more of a philosophical difference, I don't think we have a bunch of PIs and people that would be coaching or supervising and assisting our students, not necessarily even whether or not they're GA, to set them on a path whereby, they can complete their project and complete their degree, but don't necessarily, that it doesn't align with allowing them to go on. I appreciate some of them may not have any interest. They just want to get their PhD and be done and whatever, but it doesn't happen in a vacuum. So I think that's where part of this, from my perspective, I think that's where part of this is where is that, professional development component, and whether or not that professional development component lies on the academic side or on the employment side, which is the function of, like you had said, they feel like they're overworking themselves. Where does that responsibility lie? Is it on the employment side or is it on the academic side? And untangling that is, I appreciate this, why we've been talking about it so much. It's difficult. It's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy.
Okay, let us talk about this. Let's bring it to people and we will get back to you.
Okay,
Okay, thank you for bringing it.
sure.
And then it's on.
Okay, plug in.
I don't know, charger.
You don't have to plug it. Do you have
Uh-oh.
an Apple charger?
Okay.
Oh, sick, thank you.
I have an
And it's gotta be the right.
I don't have Apple money. I get paid the minimum. Thank you. Thank you so much. No.
Okay.
It's the wrong apple. All right, I'll
It's
talk
the
fast.
wrong-
I'll try to talk fast.
Okay,
Okay, so here's the.
what are we on now?
Run.
Nine.
And what we did here was, no, yeah, fine. Here we go. I've got,
So did I see it.
Yeah, we'll swap over.
I think, yeah, we can do deeper than yours, but I
That's
think
totally
it'll
fine.
survive.
okay, so, I left the notes in
Thank
place, but you can see that from what we believe, I think that we are all aligned, bless you, I think we are aligned on everything. Some of the font looks kind of weird, but I think that we are aligned on all of the language. There are some moves and stuff in there, all the way down to line 72, which is the next to last line. And I think what we wanted to talk about is just from a philosophical perspective, whether or not we wanted to be able to refer to a transcending ethical responsibility that goes over and above with respect to research. And I think that's why we've included it. We realized we were just hoping to maybe talk to you all again about why you find that particular word objectionable, because I didn't want to just put it back in there and give it back to you. Like, I didn't think that was going to be helpful. So, I guess.
Can I just flip it back on
Please.
you? Why do you think ethical, in addition to standards, is important? Because standards is a broader thing. When you say the standards of a particular academic discipline, we're talking about all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And so why are you narrowing in on ethical standards?
So I think it's inclusive of all standards, but it is specifically referred to because we're not enumerating all the every discipline has a different standard expectation. And some of them have more explicit inclusion of ethical standards than others. I certainly am not an expert on all of the hundreds of different lists of them that are depending on your individual academic discipline. But I think that, again, our interest is to say, look, it's not just if for whatever reason, there is a contemplation of whether or not we have an ethical responsibility within our research work, we want a statement, like not even a full statement, but a word or a reference to the fact that some of those research standards have to do with ethical conducting of research.
Is that, and this might be, I don't know, let me just ask you the question.
Sure.
Is the upholding of ethical standards in a particular academic discipline the place Like, is the contract the place for that? Is it not the IRB?
I think it's a good question, but this is what I would say is this article specifically talks about what our responsibilities are to you and what your responsibilities are to us. Like, we don't have to have this in here, right? So I think we just want to contextualize, in upholding academic freedom and research, the university will not unreasonably inhibit any GA in their endeavor to explore approved avenues of scholarship. But what are the parameters? The parameters include the guidelines provided by the GA
Right.
supervisor, and then beyond the specific guidance from the individual supervisor or PI, the broader standards of the particular academic and discipline.
Correct, and that's what I would say, and I wouldn't put the word ethical in there. The broader standards of the, you didn't say the word ethical when you just said it, because the broader standards of the discipline goes beyond just the ethical standards.
I mean, I think from this conversation,
I
it
don't-
just seems like our sentence to us seems broader.
Yeah,
And to you, your sentence seems broader,
So
Right.
so,
just gonna give an example from my own area, which is advertising, PR, persuasive communication. So you could, if you were saying broader standards of the discipline of marketing and advertising, for example, then you could practice deception, persuasive messaging. And not go through IRB. If you're doing that research and you're saying, I'm not gonna go be an academic scholar, I'm gonna be a researcher. And you could go work for some corporation that's doing something, you could be doing research, applied research without going through IRB. If we're saying, if you're doing that as a paid employee of UF, we want you to hold that too. And actually, it's a really good point about IRB. We want to help hold that to an ethical standard of our employees. I know that's of the 148 different disciplines. I
Right.
picked an example from one, but there are some where the disciplines have a lot of latitude that we may not, see as ethical as an institution.
how would we even know that we're upholding the ethical standards that UF would be setting? Cause I'm in sociology, so like,
Right,
what do you imagine the ethical standards of sociology are? Or social psychology?
Right, well,
or-
I think it's a good question, Hannah. I think,
Yeah.
again, we're referring
It's funny, I
to,
would go to IRB. I'd be
Yeah.
like, hey, how do you guys look at this? But yeah.
yeah, I think, again, our deference here sort of structurally was to, again, the agreed upon
Right.
overarching response, like the overarching standards inside, again, the individual disciplines.
Okay,
sorry, I made you host because my computer
yes,
is gonna
okay,
die.
let me, will you take over notes and will you plug me into, can I have the HDMI cable? And I'll share it on, back up onto the screen. Are you still running the owl though? Do you have enough power for that?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
6%.
Give us just 1 second, so sorry,
That's fine.
to, just kind of shuffle around. Okay, you can now see my screen. Please disregard anything. Oh, look, it's right. Okay, we're in 9.
It's at the end.
Will be recorded and show approving the standards.
Hold on. for a second.
Mhm.
So in other words, it wouldn't be contemplated as external to whatever those standards are if they exist, but it would just highlight.
If you
them
make them whole
and
thing,
then
it's
if they did exist, could consider something like that.
I don't know. I think that's what I'm trying to draw out. Is
Just
what
worry
do
a
they
little
mean by
bit about
ethical?
Farming out to professional organization.
Can I?
I agree.
Sorry.
Can I? As someone who's in sociology
Mhm.
and who studies a topic that is actively being anti-academic freedomed, which I know is not a great verb, but like, the topic of my study is under attack. We don't have to get into the details. The purpose of the academic freedom article to me is to enshrine in this contract, and which is already there,
Mhm.
that I have the right to do my research,
Right.
right? And so, and I'm sorry that we're drawing out this conversation. I
No, it's fine.
honestly don't know how much this matters, this word that we're talking about. But
Okay.
I wanna be clear that if you all think it's really important, I wanna know why, and I still am not fully sure why you all are really stuck on ethical, and that's why I keep asking questions.
Gotcha. No, I think it's fair. I mean, I keep in mind too, kind of that this is not on the section that contemplates sort of topics and all that other stuff. I mean, that's
I know.
more up in 9.4.
I know, and that's
Okay.
what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say my number one goal of the academic freedom article, Article 9, is to enshrine the rights of GAs to have academic.
Yeah, that's up in 9.4.
Yeah.
I mean,
freedom. This meeting's being recorded.
yeah,
So if you all
mhm,
could, in your conversations this week, figure out why you want ethical to be in there. In our conversations this week, we'll figure out an exact answer for why we're taking ethical out. Is
okay,
that fair?
Yeah,
And
we
we can
can-
come back and have a more
sure. I mean,
detailed
Yeah.
conversation if we need to.
yeah, I think, like I said, I mean, I think in a general sense, maybe it's too summarized and not detailed enough, is that, we believe that, the responsibility of engaging again, in the context of that provision, meaning we're not going to inhibit you to explore scholarship.
Mhm. As long
within-
as we're ethical, but
Right.
we're already being held to that. And that's why I brought up the IRB, right? So I understand that there could be a situation where people aren't
Under-
following ethical standards, but
Or not
like,
under IRB. I mean, that was kind of.
Okay.
I think that's what she.
Yeah,
but like, are the standards of the discipline not to be ethical? And I know that's kind of your example, but like,
Right.
go ahead, sorry.
No, well, now I'm thinking through, there are codes of ethics, for example, but that's where it gets sticky, because I'm like, I don't wanna have 148 codes of ethics if the contract says go to them to decide what's ethical.
And that's all up to this extra stuff, which is another thing that we've continued to say, like, if university policies change, or state level policies change, or if IRB gets affected by something somewhere along the way,
Mhm.
like, if we're tying us into ethical standards, it's like narrowing in on something that's gonna become changeable and get impacted, and we're gonna have to like handle the repercussions of that.
right,
And if we say standards of the field, to me, that includes ethical standards. And so
Gotcha.
it just isn't explicitly stated, and so. Like, I do human-based research, like. I'm not gonna go collect data without the IRB. If I do that, I can't get my research published. Or,
Right.
like, there are so many things that like are standards of the field that go beyond that as well, right?
Gotcha.
That go beyond ethics. That I think, honestly, if we narrow in on ethical standards, you're missing. Right? Because I can go out and I follow all the ethical standards, but I'm like writing a book and I try to send it to a publisher, like that also is like something that ultimately gets affected, right? Like there's all kinds of weird stuff that if we narrow in on ethics, it's just like not gonna be.
Okay.
Also, additional beyond that, there's like bad method. And
Yeah.
the word standards of discipline implies that you need to, subject yourself to using appropriate methodology and high quality methodology in a way that like, just isn't in the word ethical standards. Like ethical standards, you can try to do good, but also like not do great research.
So let us make a statement
Okay.
and figure out exactly. Let me articulate this well for you.
Right.
Our feeling, and if you can articulate your feeling well for us, that would be great.
No, I think you've done a good job, Hannah, quite frankly. I wouldn't wrestle with it too bad. I think maybe what we need to do is go back and have a conversation about adjusting how we're saying what we want and maybe not having it being attached to the standards of a particular academic discipline
Okay.
and refer to it in another way entirely. Because I think you've done a really good job of outlining the fact that they're different, they're explicit, the disciplines outlined in different ways. They may or may not include some of these components.
Mhm.
So I think that's really good feedback from a sense of, and we appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation as opposed to just reasserting a word that doesn't like you guys just aren't gonna like. So let us go back and let us try to enumerate kind of what we're after in a slightly different way.
Okay.
And maybe that will meet kind of what you've explained as being your sort of your limit to it, and maybe can accomplish what we're after without you finding it unnecessarily sort of surgically constraining.
Okay, and
So-
we're not opposed to saying that, like, in you all upholding our academic freedom, that we're not gonna do anything. Cause
Right.
we need to do good research also, so
Yeah,
it's
of
not
course.
like we have some sort of
Yeah,
moral objection to following the standards.
right.
We just wanna be sure that it's not gonna get caught up in other stuff.
No, I think we get that, and I think, yeah, let us take another crack at it. Like I said, we're so close on this one. We'd really like to get this one done.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're literally down to a single word in this
Yeah, yeah.
article, and this is another article that we have significantly expanded. I mean, if you look at 9 in the current contract, I mean, it's relatively short compared to what we have now. So, I mean, I think we're really close
Mhm.
to having this one. We'd love to put this one in the done column. So, yeah, good. Also, I have, I'll send them to, I don't know if I attached them to the email or not, but 3 and 5 are done.
Mm,
You know, you guys had resubmitted them because you had changed the titles at the bottom. So those are done. I don't, if
Okay.
I didn't email them, I'll email them again,
Okay,
but
Okay.
that's,
I
so
don't
we can put 3 and
think-
5 done.
They're attached, I think we got
yeah,
Just
we
as
got
ones.
4, 7, and
Okay,
9.
when I get back to the office, I'll go ahead and email those to you as well.
Okay,
Um,
Yeah.
All right,
do we have anything else? Anyone have any questions, comments from our side?
I just wanna reiterate, like, how I think it's pretty obvious that UF has bypassed bargaining with Graduate Assistants United on stipends, and we're really going to be looking into that more deeply with our lawyers.
you know, as I've said before, you guys have been saying that for a long time. I invite you to please
Yeah.
avail yourself of, you know, legal expertise and legal advice. Please, by all means.
Okay.
All right,
We're gonna be moving, the graduate assistants are going to be moving to the debrief. I'm gonna post the info in the chat and then my computer's gonna die. So, there is a passcode, please copy the passcode before you leave this meeting. Before you click on the link, because you can't, you know, you won't be able to get in.
For those of you in the room, if you wanna walk up to the table, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah.
goodbye.
Well, that's textual.
We'll give everyone in the Zoom a couple minutes to hop over.
How are y'all today? Aside from egregiously frustrated the last hour and a half.
We're
Fine.
fine. We'll talk about it when we're in a private Zoom room.
So,
I think they're all gone.
You give me this. Oh, yeah, will you stop?
Oh, stop recording.
oh, so they're fine. I'm not fine.
Just like if you close it, I think. Cause I'm not a host anymore.
So they're
You're
bringing
the one
back
that can
another
leave.
version.
Oh, I'm the host. I need
You're
to
the
stop
host.
recording. That's what you're telling me.
Yes,
Oops.
and you can leave the meeting sometime.
Stop recording. Also,